Motorists are being warned to be vigilant of the re-emergence trend of number plate cloning by criminals, who are then using them to commit murders and kidnappings. Both the Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal transport departments announced plans for new plates to help address the problem. Let's discuss this now with IBF Investigations Director Stan Bezuidenhout. Stan, thanks for your time this evening. Now, how does the process of cloning license plates typically occur, and what tools or methods do criminals use to carry out this activity?
Good evening, Hugo. So it's actually much simpler than people realize. If I wanted to, say, clone a vehicle and I wanted to create a fake vehicle, all I'd have to do is I'd have to walk around any parking lot in South Africa, such as at a shopping mall, go to a target vehicle that I'm interested in. Let's say I want to clone a particular car. I then go to that car and I simply take a photograph of the license disc with my cell phone. I now have all the information I need. I then go off. I then take a standard vehicle registration document. I then edit it on a software program, change the digits and the numbers to match the number plate from the vehicle that I'm interested in cloning. I go to a local number plate manufacturing facility. I go to them with a form and say, listen, I'm the owner, please print me a number plate. As long as they get there 280 or 300 rand or whatever, they'll print me my number plates. I then go to my car and I leave my VIN number on the license disc. I put the correct registration number or the target vehicle's registration number, and I put the plates on. Now I've got two vehicles running around with the same number plates, the same license disc, the correct VIN number on the license disc, and unfortunately no easy way to see whether it's a cloned vehicle or not.
So you talk about a simple process of doing this, but it obviously takes great intention and an understanding of the system. So let's talk about the individuals that are employing the aspect of cloning number plates. Why are they doing it? How do they use the cloned plates or the cloned vehicles?
Well, there are a variety of ways. Let's go from the mundane. There are people in South Africa, and I've actually, I know somebody personally who used to go and they say, listen, I'm not going to pay money for my boat license every year. I'm simply going to take the paper that I've been issued and I'm going to edit it. I'm just going to do it myself on the computer. Sometimes it's purely a financial thing. People don't want to go and pay for new licenses, and they create fake license documents so that they don't have to pay for licensing. When people are interested in cloning other cars, it's most typically, as you correctly explained, it must be intentional. Somebody doesn't do it by accident. So either they have an interest in using the vehicle for the purpose of crime, so they might want to hijack vehicles, they might want to do robberies, house robberies, whatever the case might be. That's the first possibility. The second is that they might use the vehicle for the purpose of selling it as a cloned vehicle, because now they know that it's not reported stolen, because if nobody looks at the VIN number and they look at the license disc and they look at the papers in their hand and the number plate, it won't come up as a stolen vehicle, it simply comes up as a vehicle. So the unwitting person might accidentally or unintentionally end up buying a vehicle that's in fact stolen. So if I steal a particular, say a BMW, and I want to sell it easily, I'm going to clone the number plate, I'm going to clone the license disc, and I'm going to edit the registration papers. I then take money from the unwitting buyer, I hand the car over, I leave with the money, and it's gone. The third is where they actually do that for the purpose of shipping vehicles out of the country for vehicle theft and obviously the distribution of stolen vehicles into the African market. They need to get over borders and things like that, and by having the appropriate number plate, one of the things that's easy to check by most police officers is based on the number plate and whether it's reported stolen. If that vehicle is not reported stolen, they might not know that if they look at the VIN number or the vehicle identification number, that is the part that doesn't change on the vehicle. But if the license disc is the same as the license plate, then typically most general police or law enforcement officers might not even detect the deviation that has taken place.
Now, there are certain vehicles, Stan, that stand out as being potential targets, primarily because they're super fast cars or they're in high demand. But in the reports that we've been picking up, there's a driver of a car in Kenilworth, and his car, from what I understand, was a Chevrolet, right? So it's
a little. Because almost any vehicle can be used for the purpose of crime. Now, I'll introduce one more scenario. I've worked in law enforcement. I spent more than 7 years in the South African police as a specialist reservist handling operations that are around vehicle crime activities. And another component that comes up is if a vehicle is found with drugs or illicit stuff in it, be it firearms, ammunition or drugs or anything, often that vehicle is confiscated and impounded. So an easy way for you to ensure that the inconvenience to you is minimized is you simply clone a cheap little boring vehicle. It's easy to get around in. It doesn't attract a lot of attention. And even if you're stopped and the vehicle is confiscated because of contraband that's in the vehicle, you haven't lost much. And those vehicles are not typically fitted with a lot of advanced technology. So they can't easily be immobilized. They can easily, the key can easily be bypassed, or, or the security system can be disabled. So while the target might be on expensive vehicles around the value of the vehicle, often cloning happens not around the value of the vehicle, but rather on the value of the mode of transport. The fact that you can now move around, you are not as obviously standing out as when you're in a very expensive car, and it's more often linked to crimes unrelated to the value of the vehicle. And then, of course, in the Gauteng environment, we found a spike in people cloning number plates simply because they don't want to pay e-tolls, because as those numbers are racked up, it goes to somebody else's account.
So how can ordinary citizens beyond law enforcement contribute to the prevention and detection of license plate cloning incidents in their communities? The incidents that we picked up were discovered fortuitously, where one was an Uber driver and he saw a car identical to his with the plate cloned, and another was just a driver who was somewhere in the middle of the city, and he stumbled upon his cloned vehicle.
Yes, so unfortunately, the way that the law enforcement mechanism or the feedback cycle in South Africa works, there's very little an owner can do to prevent somebody cloning their number plate. If you stop your car at a shopping mall and you go inside shopping and somebody walks past and takes a photograph of your license disc, you might never know they've done that. They could clone it anyway. The concern I've got is we are already well protected in South Africa by the Promotion of Private Information Act, the FOPIA Act. Now, FOPIA specifically states that nobody may collect your information without you being aware of it, and more importantly, process that information about you or of yours with you being the so-called subject of that information. So we have a lot of NPR or number plate recognition cameras in the country. We have a lot of toll gantries and public cameras, like the city of Cape Town and everything. Now, my concern is that if there was the facility for every number plate that's recorded to be reported to the owner every time it passes by any of those number plates or those cameras, surely the owner would immediately be able to detect that, wait a minute, I'm sitting at home. How come I'm driving in Durban, of all places? But there's this veil of let's call it, of separation. We have no way of knowing when somebody looks into information. Somebody could use it for criminal purposes. They could look at my license details. They could have a friend in law enforcement. They could find out that I'm S. Bezuidenhout, the owner, and they could get my phone number from that system. They could then call me and say, you Mr. Bezuidenhout? I go, yes. They say, look, something's just happened with your car outside. You must go check on it. There was an accident, whatever. I could be robbed or murdered or worse. So I'm very concerned about the fact that there's so little. We are living in 2023. This is the 21st century. These kinds of technologies, I mean, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere, you can see who's looked. I know on LinkedIn for a fact, I get reports every day. So many people looked at your profile. So many people followed you. So many. Why can this be done on our general accounts and not on our motor vehicles? Only when the owner can have, let's call it, live insight into the movements or the reported movements of the vehicle, then perhaps this can be detected sooner. But if somebody clones your vehicle in Cape Town and drives all the way to the Eastern Cape or from Johannesburg to Durban or vice versa, you might never ever know that there's a vehicle running around. Now, that person might use that vehicle for serious crime, a robbery, a cash in transit heist, whatever the case, a murder. Before you know it, you're confronted by 10 police officers waving guns in your face telling you you're the suspect in a serious crime. And just imagine if you misinterpret it and you don't act in the appropriate way, the possible consequences. So it's a big problem that I'm glad we're having a debate about, because I think there should be more from the side of government to look towards finding ways to empower citizens better. We've spent lots of money putting up toll gantries, etc. The devices are there, the technology is there. Surely we should try and find some kind of mechanism that empowers the owners of motor vehicles in South Africa, specifically to stop, eliminate and reduce crime.
Well, Stan, we've talked about this phenomenon, if you want to call it that, being on the rise. But is it rising enough for us to be concerned? I mean, what are the actual numbers that we're talking about?
Well, this is the scary thing about South Africa. There are no numbers. We don't, because the system or the mechanism is not adequately, let's call it, developed. to the point where there's a detection of a cloned vehicle. I mean, with artificial intelligence technology, perhaps you could detect, but wait a minute, there's a car that just drove through a gantry in Durban and within an hour through a gantry in Joburg, and then you should know that this car cannot be in two locations at the same time, such as with our bank cards. So if that mechanism existed, we'd be in a better position to detect it. But there are no official numbers. Some people never detected at all. Other people, like the gentleman in Cape Town, detected it. He reported it to his Crime Watch environment or his Crime Watch group on WhatsApp. And when the South African police were approached, they were unaware of the incident. People also find it very uncomfortable. They've got to go to a police station. They've got to make a report. They've got to wait in line. They might not get the best service, which I'm not saying is going to be the case, but we see the complaints often. Then there's this chance that they might have to then write statements and have to be accurate. And before you know it, they've got to go to court and go and testify, and they might never find the suspect. So the question is, if the system is essentially programming us not to trust it, why do we see a very low report rate on incidents of this kind? And it's difficult to declare yourself a victim because you haven't really suffered any personal loss. You are frustrated. You know that your car is cloned. If you don't get bills from it or toll, or speeding fines for that matter, you might never detect it or know it. And that's the unfortunate thing. It's kind of it's not like I'm going to say it's a victimless crime, but it's a kind of crime where the victim might never become aware of the fact that they're victims at all. And when they do, the question is the inconvenience of approaching law enforcement and reporting that, is it seen as a serious crime? Is there an interest at station level? You might go there and they might say, well, all you've got to do is you've got to go to the other police station or whatever. We don't know. And in South Africa, the sad truth is that we measure the efficiency of a police station not by how many crimes they report, but by how few they report. So there's this constant drive to discourage people from reporting crime. So imagine you walk into a police station, you say, my number plate's been cloned. How do you know? No, I got a text message that said I'm driving in Durban, whatever. Oh, no, it's very difficult now because, if you don't know when and where it happened, and, you must maybe go to Durban and report it there. And then people throw up their hands so quickly when the process becomes difficult. There should be an online system where you can immediately report it and your number plate and somebody else's or the fake number plate would automatically be tagged, and then you're on a watch. So you can see every single instance where that report happens, and then the detective in the matter should receive notification saying in the CAS or the crime case number 123 of 2/2024, vehicle number ABC 123DE has been traveling on these roads, and these roads, and there are two locations. Perhaps that should exist, but sadly it doesn't. I've spent enough time in the US and in Canada and in places like that where something as simple as a missing child is publicized on massive billboards all over the highways. So I'm used to an environment where the mechanisms are designed to actually stop, reduce, and eliminate crime. But we're not necessarily there yet in South Africa, and I'd like to see it happen.
So would I. Stan Bezuidenhout, Director of IBF Investigations, speaking to us on the rapid increase in the cloning of number plates. Appreciate your time.